I'm Afrose Jahan. I'm based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm a journalist in Dhaka Tribune. I write about crisis, women's rights, human rights, migration, human trafficking.
I'm originally from Lebanon. I live in Beirut. I originally studied engineering, but about 4 years ago, I got involved in politics, and now I find myself doing journalism with Megaphone.
When I started journalism, I wanted to bring out the voice of those that I felt were not being fully represented.
We are not affiliated with any political party or with any commercial entity or with any religious authority, which are things in Lebanon that dominate the media landscape. We're talking about racism, we're talking about domestic workers in Lebanon who get abused, we're talking about the LGBTQ community, we're talking about refugees who are the most demonized group right now in Lebanon.
Politics is basically viewed as a men's domain, and the women, for the few that do speak, they also face the challenge where they are vilified by society, and in the end, they don't open up to the media.
Journalists have learned to self-censor. They know that if they cross some lines and if they criticized, there can be problems, there can be severe consequences.
If your job is to say things as they are, then every line you cross is a dangerous one. And the way they retaliate is usually either by intimidation through the law. So journalists and activists, they get arrested, they get intimidated. Sometimes they're made to delete what they wrote. Sometimes there are court orders. I don't know how legitimate they are, but they ask you to not be on social media for a month. Sometimes there's violence.
When you look at the precedents that has been set by the previous regime, journalists were beaten, journalists were harassed, journalists were threatened by even the politicians themselves.
If you're a journalist and you're getting harassed online and you go to the law, you're not going to be protected. There's no structural framework to protect you.
In this scholarship, I have learned how to protect myself. I have learned how to acquire information in a way that protects my sources. I've learned how to navigate the online world without compromising my security.
The funniest thing that I explored here, this secret text. We used to have it back in our schools, like writing something in code language. So we grow up, we forget the necessity.
When I'm using ProtonMail, if anybody's like surveilling on me or just trying to spying on me, they don't know with whom I am communicating and what I am communicating.
I knew I was vulnerable before the scholarship, but I knew it in a very abstract way. If anything, the scholarship taught me that I'm not as vulnerable as I thought I was, because there are things you can do. In a way, I became more aware of the risks, but I also realized that there are ways to circumvent these risks and to take measures to protect ourselves.
So when I go back home, my first priority is to share the knowledge that I gathered here, share the tools that I get here. This can increase the protection of the sources that we have.
I believe that journalism is the other leg of any democracy, and simply for the reason that it mirrors society, it mirrors what is on the ground, and it creates those linkages and synergies that are vital for any successful democracy.
This is a profession, is the most enjoyable profession in the world, you know. It gives a direct access to someone else's really very private life. We are so motivated that the good journalism is still going on.